I would like to share some sneak peeks from our project where we try to support sport companies' R&D activities. This project, we collaborate University of Applied Science, Jyväskylä JAMK and KIH, and this is project founded by Keski-Suomen Liitto. But first, a little background for this project, and of course, in focusing on sport. And there we start to think event, game, match, competition, and this project, it's not just that at the moment, that moment where that performance comes, it's time a little bit before and also time a little bit after that sport event. As we all know, financial situation of different kind of sport clubs or federations are really challenging nowadays. And then most of these sport events are organized by sport clubs, or some of these are some specific federations. And then we start to think, is there something where we can help? And typically, event organizations ask some companies to do some sponsoring or support their event. But what these companies might get from these collaboration, not so much. Maybe some advertising board or some other visible advertising on there, but it's not help so much, or it's not so beneficial for these kinds of companies. There could be potential to get much more. How they can increase their product value, service value, or company value, sharing the same interest on the field of sport and maybe in that specific sport event, or what these teams, clubs, or federation present. And of course, can they somehow even increase their share of the market? So that was the behind where we start to think, is there something where we can help, of course, these sport clubs, but also in these companies. Here's one kind diagram from Baylis et al. And what kind of ecosystem we have these P2P sport events. You can easily recognize familiar supporting field or subfield from these ecosystems. But when we think sport event, it's like some kind of coordination. There's of course there's these top performance elite athletes, but typically there is some kind environment aspect as well, or how we consume that sport. We consume like a movies or some concert or whatever. It's basically somehow some similarities on there. But then we have also that aspect where the physical activities, also social activities, or wellness, or somewhere in there in health. So there's some kind of coordinations, and all sport events are somewhere in that coordination. So can we identify where it is, and that also localized that sport event and these fans and spectators and all other stakeholders for that whole ecosystem. Beginning of this project, we start to do invitations, and we are going to continue different kind of ways discuss with these different kind of stakeholders what they really need, what challenge they are reach in that field. Is there something, some kind of data, some kind of information, some kind of knowledge what we can bring, and that way help these sport companies to do their own R&D activities. Of course, typically we are collecting data traditionally in the lab, and there's a lot of element what these, for example, sport tech companies need when they're building their, for example, algorithms. So golden standard methods, there's several different kind of high-end devices. Of course, these conditions are fixed, constant, typically. really controlled protocols. But it's company's perspective, it's not so effective. There's just one test subject at a time, and this lab time is quite short when we do some tests on there. This kind of information is really needed, but then what we can bring when we do some kind data collections in some sport events. Of course, there come this competition aspect. There's different kind of game plans. Motivation level might be a little bit higher based on the competition. And there's also some other athletes doing their activities at the same time. And then, of course, there could be some things what challenge on these produce that peak performance. There could be spectators, there could be some stress levels, and there's some other duties with media or sponsors. So it's that atmosphere is a little bit different. And then, of course, depending on sport, what kind of conditions, if we are outdoor, changing weather, altitude, what is that ground surface? It's not that rubber mat what we have in a treadmill. So there's both important elements. Something we need from the labs, but end users typically use their devices on the field, and then companies might get some kind of really important information when we do some research during the events. When we think the data collection in sport events, of course, we can collect some kind of data from the elite athletes without disturbing their performance, maybe doing, for example, some motion analysis. But then one huge population is these active participants, and then we can do much more on there, and we can asking to do something on there. They are not so sensitive subjects for these research purposes. And then, of course, we have a lot of spectators that they are really keen on that sport. They quite often want to help different kind of companies, different kind of sport clubs. And then they are potential customers for these sport goods, services, products. And when we think some sport events, there quite often are some waiting times, and these spectators are really willing to give their answers, some questionnaires, or give their feedback about what we can use. So there's a huge potential to collect different kind of data during the sport events. I'm not sure is this backyard ultra trail running competition familiar with you. Our first pilot was in quite midsummer in Nuuksio area in Espoo in Finland. We had there in totally 74 participants in that backyard ultra competition, and 14 of these participate our study. And then main way what is behind this backyard ultra is that that the running road is 6.7 kilometers long, and every hour they start to run that loop again. So you can choose your own tactics. Do you want to run a little bit faster and keep rest, or you just try to use that whole hour and then you are just ready to start next loop. But that idea is that after one day, 24 hours, you are on 100 miles. There's a little bit separate route during day and night. And there's some safety aspects. So this night route was like a back and forth. So it's that same road where they run, and that's easy to follow these runners on there. And some details from the road. So day road, there's about 95% of trails are quite rest path, and it's in Sportfield in the headquarters. And then half of these rails are quite easy road, and these other tracks need a little bit more attention. So total elevation of this loop or route was this 80 meters, and then night route was a little bit easier. So here you can see these routes. This is this purple one is that night route, and this yellow one is this day route. And all these, there are quite many of these kind of extreme run competition give a lot of different kind data, free data for researchers or companies for free. And for example, all these Nuuksio backyard ultra organizations, these share these GPS data from all these runners every loop, for example. So you can real time follow where these runners goes and what is the order on there, or what kind of tactics that they are used. So there's a lot of potential use. Really free is to get information. In our pilot, we had 4 companies participated. That 3 of these companies are so-called sport tech companies, and one of these like a sport nutrition company. An idea in that project is somehow facilitate this co-development. Some of data are shared, are common all these companies, and then these companies can also collect their own data, what they can use privately, and then cost what it needs, that's shared between these companies. And then there's also some cooperation, of course, these research units, what we have, and these companies and these event organizations. And then we also provide this feedback service for all these companies. And here is the shared data, what kind of data we collected from all these 14 participants, and we shared all this information for all these companies. So body compositions, blood lactate, glucose, pre and post, but also during this run, core temperature. We did some cognitive tests, and then they get these nutrition diaries, and after this event, also we followed this recovery. So basically we just produce and delivered that all original data to companies, and they match that data, their own data if needed. These kind of data sets are free from these backyard ultra organizations. It's free to share, and all these participants are approved to share that kind of information already. So it's quite easy to follow some specific paragrams based on that run. And there's some color code. So red ones, these 3 best runners, they run more than 200 kilometers during this competition. These blue ones, they run 150 to 200, and then green ones are less than 150 kilometers. So they are basically reach huge amount kilometers during these kind of competitions. So that's the one benefit. We can never do this kind of test setup in the lab. So that way, these kind of companies can get some really unique data. And of course, when we get that participant population, so now we collect only data from the 14 runners, but of course it depends need. It's quite easy to recruit quite huge sample set from these kind of competitions. Okay, and then this is also lab by lab information from these participants, and this is also free data for all companies. And then the same, these event organizations share some kind of weather information from during these competitions and from that location where they did that competition. So it depends what kind of information these companies need. Really nice, little bit different kind of data sets are free to use. Also, we can collect quite easily data sets, for example, from these Finnish Meteorological Institute, Ilmatieteen laitos. They share information, and you can go to check, for example, this Espoo-Nuuksio area weather during these midsummer days quite easily, and you can get data sets hour per hour from that time. And there's a air temperature, there's how much rain they are going, and what is the humidity and then temperature. So it's quite easy to get this kind of environment-related data out. And here is that page how it went during this Nuuksio Backyard Ultra competition. So that night hours during that competition was really rainy, and this relative humidity was really high, basically during these all night hours, then it's a little bit decreased, and these air temperature were somewhere between 18 and 12 Celsius degrees. So all these kind of informations are free to use for everybody. And then, of course, this real environment, there's a really dark event that was midsummer, so that was so cloudy at the time. So it gives one challenge, or this one real life challenge, because they did the trailer run on there in the forest and that dark, and so they had to use these headlamps there during the running. Here's some data what we offer to companies based on our own measurements. There's some kind of background information for these athletes. Typically, these trail runners, they're a little bit older, and based on these ethical guidelines and these permissions, that upper limit was these 50 years old, and afterwards they came some participants. They are a little bit disappointed because we have to exclude their participation because they are overaged. But that age is a little bit high, and total. Then we have some data based on this heart rate, some approximated VO2 max, so some average core temperature, and we also follow these nitrogen intake. So we calculate that per lap, and then mainly that changes predisposed on their weight. We can see these average lap time was a little bit shorter. They ran a little bit faster during the night time because that road was a little bit easier compared to that day road. There's not so big changes on blood lactate, glucose during this whole competition, and different kind of lab where we did these tests. And then we follow this core temperature during night hours. We follow that during the whole competition, but there's just sample on these night hours, and we can quite easily to see this core temperature drop immediately after when they start that new round on here, because they start that new round every hour. So about 3.5 minutes or 4 minutes after that new start, that they reach at lowest core temp values on there. But we are not done yet statistical calculations and combine different kinds of results together. So I got most of these data beginning of this year, this week. Then we also as companies, these participants, we try to a little bit test that our idea. Could we use this same kind method, collect data from these active participants during the sport events, and is there something what we can do better or do in different way? Would you be willing to share your performance or physiological measurement data for these different companies and organizations? So mainly yes, really positive feedback from there. So if they can also use the data, but mainly really positive feedback. So hopefully we can continue to do these similar things. Then we try to find is there some kind of benefits for these event organizations doing these kind of measurements and basically offer for their participants more insight measurement data from their own performance or physiology, and mainly yes. It's supported, and then are you willing to pay a little bit less than half, and then typically when we do this kind of survey and people say yes, and then when it realize and they really have to pay something that's even less. So it's a little bit tricky, and of course it depends on what it costs and what kind of information and data we can provide. And then we try to a little bit change that angle of how we ask, and is there some factors what would negatively affect their willingness. So we have to ensure they can concentrate that performance, and of course that is easy to understand. And then basically what is that positive from these questionnaires is that they are not concerned how we use that data or the data protection. So we can bring these ethical things clearly there, and they trust what we do. But yeah, this is our project team. There's a really good experts from KIHU, and then they have our JAMK staff related to sport business and also from athletic background. So I think this is really nice collaboration with these two organizations. During next year, we could focus a little bit more, also some other sub-elements around these sport events. For example, how we can support visibility and collaboration between these different kind companies which support sport events. For example, can some other companies, for example, some travel logistic or some restaurant services or some accommodation, how they can do more business on there, but still at the same time we try to support these sport technological companies, basically doing their own research and development activities during sport events. But yeah, thank you.